name is Shamyra Parker, and I'm coming to you for the I'm Not Her, The Real You Takeover by Sonia Battle. Who am I? I am a mother. I am a daughter. I am an inspirational speaker, educator, facilitator, and an author of Born Boundless International. Who I thought I was all those years, and I'm not talking about a couple of years, I'm talking about the majority of my life, was an abandoned person. I called myself the abandoned because that is what I believed. If we take a journey back and we go all the way back to childhood, when my father left. Now, I may not have really gotten to the core of what was happening when he left until I got a little bit older. But when he left and he stopped with the letters, he stopped with the calls, and he stopped seeing me, I believed that I had been abandoned. I believed that I wasn't good enough to be his daughter and for him to want to be in my life or for me to be in his. Followed by multiple abandonments. It's not like the abandonment didn't happen, right? I'm not saying it didn't happen. It happened. But what I'm saying is that I was not clear and I didn't have an understanding of what the abandonment really meant. What I want to do is I want to define for you what abandon really is. It is being left without needed protection, care, or support. This is what I believed about my life. Not just my father, but there would be friendships, there would be other family members, there would be relationships. Now, you may not be fully aware of how traumatic abandonment is. We talk about abandonment issues all the time, and we do it in such a pedestrian way that I don't think that you fully understand the gravity of the trauma that abandonment causes. There's actually a term for it, believe it or not. So we talk about abandonment syndrome. And so because there is abandonment syndrome, it actually has symptoms and signs that are PTSD related. So I'm going to list a few of those for you. An intrusive, debilitating anxiety, chronic feelings of insecurity, chronic depression, decreased self-esteem, feelings of loss over control over your life, self-deprecation, isolation, and obsessive thinking and intrusive thoughts about abandonment all the time. What does all this mean? It means that abandonment is traumatic and it becomes this disease that can permeate all the areas of your life if you're not careful and if you're not aware. Abandonment fear often stems from childhood loss. As I mentioned to you earlier, it was my father that kicked it off. And then so as it continued, it was trauma after trauma after trauma. So what we're talking about is a cumulative effect of trauma, a cumulative effect of abandonment. It became so pervasive for me that I worried about abandonment all the time. As an adult, I have to tell you how that showed up for me and how I became the I'm not her version of the abandoned. For me, I felt like I needed to make myself valuable. So what I would do is I would do everything I could. I would do the entire most. I'm talking about go above and beyond in all of my relationships. The point of it was to become so valuable and so loved and so needed that they wouldn't leave me. So if they loved me, if I did enough and they loved me, they wouldn't leave me. If I did just enough for them, they would always want to have me around. That was not me fully being me. The problem with that is that I wasn't really giving and loving people from an authentic place. And I had to get really real about that one day. One day, Elder Tavia called me to the carpet. She did it in such a loving way. We were at prayer, and she asked me to really think about think about it, why I was doing what I was doing, and not to do it unless I really felt it in my spirit to do it. That sounds like something that should be easy for most people, but for me, I had become so accustomed all throughout my life doing things for people to try to get myself to be needed and loved that I didn't know the difference. Can you imagine not knowing the difference between whether or not you want to do something for someone out of the goodness of your heart, or if you're doing it with the motivation of being accepted and needed so that they won't leave? That's a harsh reality, and I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. The next thing that I did was I had to really get clear with myself about who I was and about my motivations for why I was doing things for people. Was I really a good person? Was I really this loving and sweet person that everybody thought I was? Or was I someone else? Because I had been parading as someone else. I wasn't the Shamyra that everyone thought that I was. It doesn't mean that none of it came from a good place, but I found that a lot of it came from wanting to be loved and needed in a way that I wouldn't be abandoned. That's operating out of fear. The saying goes, we do everything out of either fear or love. And anytime we do things out of fear, that is not God. God is all about the love. So me being able to get into a place of asking God to help me be clear on my heart, to show me my real, true, and authentic heart, I had to pray about that thing. I had to really, really do some deep diving and allow God to do surgery on my heart to check my motivations. That is the only way I was able to get myself out of that place of my motivations not being what I thought they were. And once I became clear on who I was, I understood that it wasn't like I was completely false. I still love doing things for people. But the difference between then and now is that I do it only when I want to do it. I do it only when I feel like God is willing me to do it. I don't do it for something in exchange. I don't do it for love and acceptance in exchange. Then we also have to examine abandonment and what it means and what we're making it mean. What do I mean by that? When we look at abandonment and what it actually means versus what we're making it mean, we're talking about the story that we tell ourselves. Why is this important? Because if you really take a look at your relationships and you look at what you're thinking about the things that people are doing, when you suffer from abandonment issues, or if you suffer from abandonment syndrome and you're dealing with PTSD because of it, you will find that you will have things that will happen that will trigger you. There will be things that will happen in your relationships that have nothing to do with that person abandoning you or even desiring to do so. But the reason why you're triggered is because you are making it mean that. It's so important to be self-aware. Self-awareness is the remedy for abandonment issues. I am not abandoned. I am loved. And even if someone does leave, it doesn't mean anything about who I am. Is it possible that it means something about who they are? Self-awareness allows you to be able to separate what something is and what we're telling ourselves it is and what we're making it mean. That is my journey. And I wouldn't tell you anything that I wouldn't do myself. All these things are things that I have actually done and walked out to become fully integrated into who I am. There's no longer this other version of me. I am who I am, and I am Shamyra Parker.